This list will not be given in any particular order because frankly, I love all of them far too much to rate them against one another. These are characters who have made me laugh and cry and want to throw things at the television. But that's what good characters do. Life is full of ups and downs, so a strong character arc should be as well. What makes a good character? Complexity and growth. Character development is what makes us love a character, connect with them, and care about what happens to them. The conflict directly impacts their growth, and their choices in exchange directly impact the plot of the story. Hi everyone, Nicole here from Writersbrooke. If you are new to this channel, I'm an author and a former high school English, film studies, and theater teacher, and I currently work in higher education. Writersbrooke is a deep dive into the world of storytelling, from movies to books, TV, video games, and more. As that mini recap explained, this is a second part of a two-part series. Today, I will be analyzing some of my favorite male characters from TV. If you missed the first part of the series, make sure to check it out to see my analysis of some of my favorite female TV characters. Like last time, we'll discuss what makes these characters great, both their strengths and weaknesses, and how their story arcs in their respective shows make them such rich characters. Stilinski is hands down one of the best characters in all of Teen Wolf, in my opinion. Although it is one of my favorite series, I will be the first to admit that it's not the best or well-written teen drama around. That being said, Stiles may very well be one of my favorite characters of anything, ever. He's hilarious, vulnerable, determined, brave in the face of all the crazy, dangerous stuff that's going on in the show, even though he's not supernatural like most of the other characters. And he's one of the best friends anyone could ever have. I don't think I've ever talked to anyone who's watched Teen Wolf whose favorite character isn't Stiles. Stiles is so smart and resourceful that he solves the majority of the mysteries in the series, or at least puts the pieces together once everyone has helped reveal the clues needed to solve it. Stiles starts out as a hopeless nerd who has a giant crush on the most popular girl in the school, Lydia Martin. And he also wants to be on the lacrosse team despite a distinct lack of talent in the sport. He's not exactly coordinated, and he often jumps to conclusions too quickly. He's curious and lacks an appreciation for the law, despite his father being the sheriff, or rather, because of it. He is the definition of loyal and will do anything to help his friends. Throughout the series, he learns to trust his gut and his abilities, even in sports and in dating, without being cocky about it or jumping to conclusions too quickly. And he puts himself in harm's way countless times in order to help those around him, even when he doesn't stand a chance. He's been in love with Lydia Martin since the 3rd grade, and he never gives up on her or stops believing in her even when no one else can fathom him having a chance with her in the slightest. It's not simply that he's attracted to her or that she's popular. His love for her is so genuine. He knows her better than anyone else, and he always defends her. Unlike other media where this trope is often executed poorly, Stiles remains hopeful but not obsessive. He's able to remain a friend to her even when both of them are dating other people throughout the series, and by the end of it, their story feels earned when they finally find their way to one another, when the time is right and they're both ready. Stiles is also portrayed by the brilliant Dylan O'Brien, so he's hard not to love. And with an E is an adaptation of the book series Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. It's a darker and very powerful interpretation of the series that makes audiences laugh, cry, and dream right along with the characters on the screen. In the beginning of the series, Gilbert Blythe, returning from a trip with his father, saves Anne from a bully at school. She's been having a very difficult time fitting in because she's an orphan and new to the school. A problem made even harder because one of the girls she was trying to befriend had a huge crush on Gilbert and was jealous of the attention he was paying Anne. Although Gilbert was clearly interested in Anne from the start, he defended her out of an innate ability to see the good in others, despite society's ability to quickly judge anyone who's new or different. He's perceptive, curious, kind, and one of the few sweet boys in their town. After their initial meeting, Anne begins ignoring him because of her new friend's crush, trying to get her attention, and because he's still just a schoolboy after all. Gilbert throws pieces of paper at her in class, pulls her braid, and begins calling her carrots because of her red hair, which earns him a smack from her chalk slate. Because of this bad interaction, and because both he and Anne are stubborn and competitors for the highest marks in class, they have a rocky sort of friendship throughout the series. All the characters grow up a lot through the course of the series, but Gilbert's journey takes him miles and continents away as he learns to rely on himself and his found family, as well as becomes unafraid to fight for what he wants. His kindness and perseverance through all the obstacles he faces eventually earn him a well-deserved happy ending. Ichabod Crane is a man out of time in the series Sleepy Hollow. The show is loosely based on Washington Irving's short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and it brings the characters to life for a new generation. It combines elements of the short story and the Revolutionary War with the story of the 4 horsemen from the Bible, as well as different aspects of mythology around the world, and sets it all in our time period. Ichabod Crane is a patriot soldier fighting in the Revolution. He fights the Headless Horseman on the battlefield, who at the time was a Hessian soldier and still had a head. They both gravely injured one another, Ichabod taking the head of the soldier and the horseman wounding Crane on the chest. To save his life, his wife Katrina, who unbeknownst to him was a witch, spelled Crane and hid him and the horseman, one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, in a cave. When the horseman awoke in our time, so did Crane. He's intelligent and curious, a former professor at Oxford, a brave soldier, and he's entirely confused by everything modern around him, which makes for some hilarious scenes. He uses his knowledge from the past, as well as his experiences in our time, to make a positive impact and help those around him. He is intelligent, humble, stubborn, brave, and most of all, he's passionate about learning and helping others. As the series progresses, he learns to fit in our modern world and to be a leader instead of a foot soldier following orders. Luke is the lead singer, guitarist, and songwriter of the band Sunset Curve. He has an enthusiastic, upbeat, and easygoing positive nature that makes him the natural leader of the band. Despite all of that, none of it gets to his head. He's humble and friendly and just wants to share his love of music with everyone. That is his intrinsic motivation. He is completely driven by his desire to share his music. He doesn't care about money or fame. All he cares about is doing what he loves. So after he and most of his bandmates die in the 90s and show up as ghosts in our present day, he is ecstatic to find out that people can still hear and see them when they play their music. They have a second chance to do what they love. With Julie. Through the series, it is revealed that his parents did not approve of his dream, and he had to make some difficult choices. One of the best parts of this character is his vulnerability when he sings about the loss of his parents. It's a beautifully heartfelt scene that you wouldn't expect to see in a comedic musical show like this. We see him navigate his guilt and learn to balance his desire to perform and make amends with his past with his desire to do what's right by his friends. Xavier is introduced to Wednesday as the resident tortured artist of the school. He's a quiet and moody artist who has the magical ability to bring his art to life. His father is a famous psychic who has no time for his son at all. From the very start of the series, Wednesday catches Xavier's eye. He's recently broken up with the school's queen bee and Wednesday's school nemesis, Bianca, and is trying to dodge her attempts to reconcile their relationship. Despite his moody exterior, Xavier is very observant, smart, kind, and brave. He and Wednesday share a rocky friendship that he is not at all afraid to admit he would much rather be more than just a friendship. Throughout the season, Xavier learns to stand up for himself and find a way to balance his desire to help his friends with his need to protect himself. In the beginning of the series, Reynie Muldoon is a quiet and curious boy who would much rather be reading or learning something than anything else, which is why he doesn't fit in with the other kids at his orphanage. The only person he connects with is his teacher, who's more like a mother to him. She's the one who finds the opportunity of a lifetime for him and sends him to take a test to earn a scholarship to get into a prestigious school, starting off the events of the series. Reynie doesn't see the world like everyone else. He's perceptive, thoughtful, and always focuses on how his actions might impact others around him. Throughout the events of the series, Reynie learns that he's the natural leader of the mysterious Benedict Society, even though he never would have recognized it on his own. He has to figure out the ups and downs that come with being a leader and how that responsibility can impact the other people around him positively or negatively. Steve Harrington starts out as a popular rich kid jock who's infatuated with Nancy. He checks all the boxes of the stereotypical popular guy who's probably not going to last very long in a horror sci-fi series. His friends are the worst, and everyone in the school either wants to date him, be him, or they hate him. At first it seems like all Steve wants out of Nancy is another notch on his belt, but through the events of the series it becomes clear that isn't the case at all. Then, when things get crazy and he finds out about the Upside Down, instead of running away, he stands by her side and fights to save everyone. He may have started out in the series as a stereotypical character, but he quickly proved that that's not who he is. He becomes a mentor, a protector of others in scary situations, even when he doesn't stand a chance of winning at all, and he's a loyal friend. He might not have book smarts or be particularly good in a fight, but he's definitely one of the best people anyone could have by their side as they try to solve mysteries and survive the Upside Down. Just like with Stiles and Teen Wolf, Steve is the favorite character of most people I've talked to about Stranger Things. Joe Keery does an exceptional job bringing a sense of vulnerability, humility, and strength of will to this character. He's relatable, hilarious, and has so much heart. Even though he started out as the popular jock, Steve has had one of the best character arcs in the series, making him one of the most vital and lovable characters in the show. Mr. Knightley from BBC's miniseries adaptation of Jane Austen's Emma is proper, honorable, quietly observant, kind, and loyal. When he's not running his estate, he spends his time with Emma and her father. He is the definition of a friend-zoned best friend, and always has Emma's back, though he's not afraid to tell her when he disagrees with her actions. He's very set in his ways and happy to stay in his comfort zone. He, like Emma, is quite stubborn. He's not afraid to stand for what he believes is right and defend those who are being treated unfairly. Despite being the definition of an English gentleman, he cares very little for status, though he understands the practicality of how status impacts people's lives. He also does not approve of Emma meddling in people's love lives, especially without paying any mind to how those practicalities of status might negatively impact them and others around them. Through the series, Knightley learns that he needs to be willing to step outside of his comfort zone and that he has to fight for what he wants to find the true happiness that he desires. Despite the recent cancellation of Legacies, and in my opinion, that nearly abysmal final season they concluded on, Landon Kirby is definitely one of my favorite characters. Legacies is a spin-off of the Vampire Diaries and the originals, but unlike its parent shows, it balances the drama, heartbreak, and violence inherent in the TVD universe with a more lighthearted and comedic spin. Legacies is entirely aware of the fact that it can be cheesy at times, with its characters constantly making fun of the situations they find themselves in, and it even boasts themed episodes, like a fairy tale episode, a video game episode, a slasher episode, and more, all by expanding the lore of the TVD universe into different forms of mythology. Landon Kirby is the perfect example of how this show differs from the expectations set up in its parent shows. Landon is sweet, quiet, and nerdy, but also positive in spite of a backstory that would typically render a moody teen heartthrob. All in all, he's basically the opposite of what you would expect the main character's romantic love interest in a TVD show to be, which makes me love him all the more. Just like Stiles, he's not big or strong or particularly coordinated. Unlike Stiles, he's not cocky or the class clown. He's quietly determined, creative, musical, brave, shy, intelligent, incredibly loyal, always thinking of others before himself, and he's not afraid to go full nerd and play D&D and watch Star Wars. Throughout the series, Landon learns to trust himself. He learns that his ideas matter and that he has so much to give. Despite his messed up backstory, he doesn't have to be defined by where he's been. He can choose the people he wants in his life. And he can fight for what he wants instead of just letting life quietly pass by in front of him. Now, the writing in the last season was admittedly a hot mess, even though the season before it was my very favorite season. So I'm personally just going to pretend it never happened. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to imagine that he had a far better ending than was allotted to him in that not entirely planned series finale. But nonetheless, even through all of that chaos of the last season, Landon never stopped being the sweetheart that he always was. Clearly, there is a pattern to the types of characters that I like best. From my last video to this video, you'll probably notice that the characters I find most compelling are loyal, caring, even when it's not outwardly obvious, and they're not afraid to do what they think is right no matter the cost. Sometimes they're sassy, sometimes they're shy, but they're typically perceptive and determined in the face of adversity. Despite their strengths, the best characters always each have weaknesses that make them realistic and relatable. Without both, a character doesn't seem real because in reality, no one is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone learns and grows as they try to navigate the world every single day. Good character writing and portrayals show that. They make it so that we can see ourselves in these characters. We can identify some aspect of ourselves in them, even if it's as small as a character knowing how to laugh at something when it scares them, or a character not having great self-esteem, even though they look perfect to the outside world. Without that connection to characters, audiences won't care about them. Another big aspect of effective character writing is transformation or change. Through the events of their stories and the choices they make, these characters develop and become better every day, little by little, one step at a time. Most of the characters I chose to analyze in this series make positive changes, but good character writing can also make use of negative character arcs. Maybe the character starts out as a kind and honest person, but as the story progresses, they learn that they won't survive unless they are willing to lie or hurt others. In essence, we have to see that a character is impacted by the events of the story. Without that, the story doesn't matter. The characters I've analyzed here have journeys that are inspiring, hilarious, and heartbreaking at times. And despite the unrealistic fantasy setting of most of the shows they are part of, these characters feel real. We can learn from their mistakes and their successes. Like any good story, we can apply what we learned from them in our own lives, and we can enjoy ourselves as we watch them fail and win and fail and try over and over again. So this concludes our series on TV characters. You might have learned something about me by the types of characters I'm drawn to, but most importantly, I hope you learned what makes good character writing in general, and why you might be drawn to certain characters yourselves. Now, who are your favorite TV male characters? Why do you love them so much? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, and please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Until next time, friends, find your story.